the most popular houseplant in the world, was designed to never touch soil. For 3,000 years, the Phalaenopsis orchid lived in the canopy of tropical forests, clinging to bark, 60 meters above the ground. No pot, no moss, no plastic tray on a kitchen windowsill, just bark, mist, and gravity. Then a $9 billion industry put it in a pot of wet moss, printed instructions that said, "Water weekly," and taught you to drown it. The average orchid in your home lives 3 months. The average orchid in the wild lives 20 years. Same plant, same species, different method. Today, we return it to the canopy. An orchid doesn't need soil, it needs air, and the only reason it's dying on your windowsill is because someone made more money selling you moss. The archive opens in the cloud forests of Borneo, 3,000 years ago. Mist rises through the canopy at dawn. Light filters through layers of epiphytes and ferns, hanging 60 meters above the forest floor. And there, clinging to the bark of an ancient dipterocarp tree, a Phalaenopsis orchid. Its roots are silver. They glisten in the morning humidity. They don't reach for soil, they reach for air. Not in soil, not in moss, not in a plastic pot on a kitchen shelf. In the canopy, in the mist, in the wild. This is where the orchid chose to live. For 3 millennia, no one questioned it. Stories like these are told across Southeast Asia. In rural Thailand, a grandmother ties her orchids to the branches of a mango tree. She waters them when the rain comes. She never uses a pot. She never uses moss. She has never bought orchid fertilizer in her life. Her orchids have bloomed for 30 years. When her granddaughter moved to the city and bought a Phalaenopsis from a supermarket, she followed the instructions on the label. Water weekly. Keep in indirect light. The orchid died in 8 weeks. The grandmother laughed. She said, "You gave it a prison, give it a tree." The orchid was never ordinary. In China, Confucius wrote about orchids 500 years before the Common Era. He called the orchid the symbol of integrity, of refined friendship, of a person who stays virtuous even when no one is watching. Chinese emperors cultivated cymbidium orchids for over 2,500 years. They were displayed in scholar gardens alongside calligraphy and incense. In Japan, orchids became part of samurai aesthetics, the delicacy of the bloom against the discipline of the garden. Across Southeast Asia, orchids appeared in temple offerings, in traditional medicine, in spiritual ceremonies marking birth and death. The Phalaenopsis, whose name means moth-like, was considered a living sculpture, a gift from the forest to the human world. For 3 millennia, the orchid was sacred, not disposable. But something changed. It didn't happen overnight. It happened in 3 stages, and each stage took the orchid further from what nature intended. How long has your orchid lived? Drop a number in the comments. The archive collects living evidence. Layer 1. The 1830s. Victorian England. A fever grips the aristocracy. They call it orchidelirium. Collectors like William Lobb and Frederick Sander send teams to the tropics, to Borneo, to the Amazon, to the Philippines, with a single instruction: bring back orchids. Millions of wild orchids are stripped from their trees, entire populations wiped from forests that took centuries to grow. They stripped the forests so that drawing rooms in London could have a single bloom. Species that survived ice ages and volcanic eruptions nearly went extinct for interior decoration. Layer 2. The 1960s. A scientist discovers meristem propagation, A single orchid can now be cloned into thousands of identical copies. The price crashes from $1,000 per plant to $5. Orchid becomes commodity, packed in sphagnum moss, shipped in plastic containers, sold in grocery stores between the bread aisle and the checkout. The cloning wasn't the problem. The packaging was. Layer 3, the 2000s to present. A $9 billion global orchid industry. The business model is elegant in its simplicity. Sell the orchid in wet moss. Print instructions that guarantee overwatering. The orchid rots from the inside out within 12 weeks. Customer buys a new one. This is not a conspiracy. This is a business model. Follow the revenue. $9 billion. 3 months average lifespan at home. 20 years average lifespan in the wild. You do the math, but the orchid survived. It always does. The Orchidaceae family is one of the largest and most resilient plant families on Earth. 28,000 species, found on every continent except Antarctica. Orchids survived 5 mass extinctions. They survived the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. They didn't need our help to survive. They just needed us to stop drowning them. And then, the scientists looked at the roots. What they found changes everything. Reveal 1. Velamen. Every orchid root on Earth is covered in a layer of spongy tissue called velamen. Velamen absorbs water directly from the air in seconds, like a fog harvesting system built into the root itself. In 2019, researchers at the University of Queensland confirmed that velamen functions as a natural dew collector. The root doesn't need to sit in water. It was designed to drink from the air. Reveal 2. The fungal alliance. 100% of orchid species depend on mycorrhizal fungi to germinate. Orchid seeds are among the smallest in the plant kingdom. They carry no food reserves, no endosperm, nothing. The only way an orchid seed can grow is if a specific fungus finds it first and feeds it. This partnership is 100 million years old. When you put an orchid in sterile, packaged moss, you sever a 100 million year old alliance. Reveal 3. The roots that see light. Orchid roots contain chloroplasts. This means they photosynthesize. They generate their own energy from light. That's why healthy orchid roots are green. They're not just absorbing, they're producing. When you bury those roots in opaque moss inside a solid pot, you're blocking a power source that evolution spent millions of years perfecting. Modern science confirms what the forest always knew. Orchids were never meant for soil. The moss was never for the orchid. It was for the shipping container. So how do you return an orchid to its true nature in your own home? The method is simpler than you think. Step 1. Remove all moss, foam, and bark from the roots. Every piece. Free them completely. Step 2. Rinse the roots gently with clean water. Cut away anything brown, mushy, or hollow. Let the plant air dry. Step 3. Optional. Soak the roots for 15 minutes in diluted rice water or a vitamin B1 solution. This supports recovery. It is supplemental, not essential. A word of caution. Coffee in high concentrations can lower pH below what orchid roots tolerate. If you choose this path, dilute heavily. Test on one plant first, and never apply to roots that are already damaged. Step 4. Place the orchid in a clear container on an inert medium. Pebbles, leca clay balls, or mount directly on bark. Step 5. Add a small amount of water to the bottom of the container. Just enough for humidity, not submersion. The roots must breathe. Step 6. Position in. bright indirect light. East-facing windows work best. Temperature between 18 and 28 degrees during the day, and a drop to 15 to 20 at night. That temperature drop is what triggers blooming. This works in any climate zone, indoors, year-round. You're not learning a new technique, you're remembering an old one. Share this with someone whose orchid is drowning in moss right now. Picture this: a $5 orchid from the supermarket. Plastic pot, wet moss. Instructions that say water weekly. Dead in 3 months. Now picture the same orchid, mounted on a piece of bark. Roots white and plump, reaching into open air. Green chloroplasts catching the morning light. Blooming. Every year. 5 years, 10, 20. You didn't rescue the orchid. You just stopped drowning it. Not because of coffee, not because of rice water, because you remembered how it was meant to grow. The archive closes, but the orchid blooms again. Every orchid you rescue from the trash is an act of remembrance. The old growers, in Thailand, in Indonesia, in the Philippines, they never used soil. They never used foam. They used what the forest provided. And now, so can you. Subscribe to the Green Archive. We excavate what the industry buried. The next archive opens soon.